Welcome back, my friends, to the Minecraft Myth-Busting World, the series where we answer questions about this blocky game and become better Minecrafters in the process. Now, with the recent release of the Trails and Tales update, you might have been expecting an exclusively 1.20 episode. And believe me, we have myths to bust from 1.20, but first of all, we're going to jump in with a couple of interesting discoveries that I've recently made. The first of which is related to anvils and helmets of all things. The myth was that a helmet on your head would halve the damage of an anvil falling from above and landing on you. This, my friends, turned out to not be true in the slightest. We have just taken 3.5 hearts of damage. Now let's try that again with a chest plate and you'll see that we've taken 3 hearts of damage. That is of course less damage, so the helmet isn't halving the amount of damage that an anvil does to you. I guess the logic here is that an anvil hitting an unprotected head would do more damage, but there is actually a difference between these two events. If we look at the durability here, you're going to see it's taken 4 hit points of durability, whereas the regular armor has only taken 2. So I've tested this extensively and I can confirm you take more durability damage on your helmet than other pieces of armor. And I know that some of you are curious, so let's do one more little test. I'm going to equip a full set of netherite armor. The anvil is going to fall from higher up. We've taken more damage, and if we go and look in here, you'll see that we took a lot more durability damage. So for each of these items, it was 7, and then for the helmet, it was double, it was 14. So a curious detail, and maybe not the most useful thing in survival Minecraft, but I want to make it clear, this next thing that I'm going to show you does work in survival Minecraft, you know, an unmodded game. The difference is you need commands and whatnot to access this feature. But as you probably know, you can rename mobs in this game. We've got a camel over here. I'm going to rename it to Dinnerbone. And it's been flipped upside down, one of the little Easter eggs. But now you can see its nameplate displayed above it. So I was curious if using colors and text formatting would be passed over from the name tag, this one has some color, to the mob, and as you can see, it does in fact pass it over. We can create bold text, we can put strike through on it, this mysterious nonsense, and as you can see, it's been mixed with color as well, as has the underline. As I said, this isn't possible without the use of commands, but there is a data pack that makes it all easy, and if you wanted to do this yourself, first of all, you got to rename your name tag. Then when you're holding that name tag in your hand, you want to run this command. It brings up a menu that you can interact with, and then you just got to click on the options to make it bold, to change the color, or to pick some of this special font, and then go and click on the mob. Right, that's a great reason to subscribe. Think of all the things you're learning. The data pack is called the Name Formatting Station, and this will be linked in the description box down below. So next up we have a brilliant question related to copper aging or oxidization, and let's quickly go over the basics. This is influenced by the game's random tick update rule, and so with time it will go through the various stages of oxidization. Now this process will be slower if you have a whole bunch of copper lumped together, as they influence the rate at which it oxidizes. This is why you might have seen a bunch of farms where copper is spaced out like this, and that's so that it can oxidize quicker. The question we have is if waxed blocks of copper actually influence this aging process. So over here I've set up a rather simple test. We have these platforms of copper blocks, so they're all going to be influencing each other and they will age slower. Yet on this side what I've done is just left one block of copper in the middle and surrounded it with waxed blocks. And this is where we get to make life easy for ourselves. As you'll see, I've set the random tick speed to 0. So now we're going to set it to 1000 and we start to see some action straight away, and no surprise, it's all on the right hand side here where the blocks are surrounded with waxed copper. So we can see that these other clusters of copper are starting to age, but all of the ones on this side have fully aged. And that, my friends, is a fine test that I think fully answers this question. I'm not sure how useful this will be, but now you know. So now we are ready to jump into our 1.20 myths, but just before we do that, something totally unrelated to Minecraft that is very, very dear to me. I have recently released a whole album of music, and if you would like to check it out, you can visit my link tree, which we're looking at. It's linked down below. On here, you can find a ton of stuff that might be interesting to you in some capacity, but today I wanted to let you know about my record. It is a passion project, something that I wrote 12 years ago, and only this year was I able to bring it to life. It's completely free. It's available on Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, and all the major streaming platforms. It's a huge deal to me, so thank you for hearing me out, and now we'll crack on with what you're all here for, the myth busting in 1.20. So there has been a change in this update that you need to know about related to shields. This is probably going to be one of the coolest ones. So I think I'm going to show you just by running this command. You know it involves TNT. It also involves blocking, which I'm now doing, and we just took no damage whatsoever, but fell into the void. Oh dear. So what on earth just happened there? Well, we got these redstone blocks to activate the TNT that I summoned in. The important thing to note is that these are all activated at the very same time, and then when I block the explosive damage, the change is that the shield now blocks all TNT damage, and I go flying up into the sky. If you plan on having some fun and taking advantage of this, it's really important to note that all your TNT needs to be activated in the same tick. As you'll see here, you get a little pushback from the TNT. It's when you have loads of it activated at the exact same time that you get that huge pushback that sends you flying. Next up, another change, one that's going to require the use of this hitbox to make visualizing what's going on a little bit easier. The game now calculates the effect of the block that you're under differently. It's based on where your crosshairs point. The moment we go over to the slime, you can see that our movement gets slowed down. This works differently on soul sand and honey blocks, as soon as the hitbox touches the iron blocks, then the effect isn't passed on. So even though we're on top of the honey block with the crosshair, you can see the effect is not passed on. Due to these changes, there is some quirkiness with carpets that you might want to know about. You can see that I'm on top of the very edge of it, and I'm being slowed down by the honey block. You can even see that my crosshair is over here to the side. So what's going on is that the block underneath is passing its effects up to the carpet, and because the carpet is slightly raised, it means that we get this effect when we're actually over the next block. It is interesting to note that despite a big gap between the carpet and the bed, it will work with this too. If we fall down from high up, you'll see that we bounce because of the bed. This might have got you wondering about another specific block, that being the powder snow. As you can see, even though I'm not inside of it where the crosshairs are, the effect is still applied to the player when their hitbox collides. And now I'm shaking, I'm freezing cold. A flat world, an FPS counter, a giant cube of glass. What could we possibly need all of this for? It is lag busting, because a new block's been added to the game, and this is actually a relatively laggy block. It's a tile entity, like a hopper is, and it's also got a bit more of a complex shape than a regular block. So to test this, we're going to fill in the giant cube with different blocks. The first one that I'm going to try is the lectern, because it also has a relatively complex rendering. And as we fly around, you can see that the game is holding out at a steady 69 FPS. Just in case you're curious, my game is capped to 70 FPS. Pro tip, if you set this to just above the refresh rate of your monitor, then the game isn't going to spend resources trying to create frames that it's not actually going to show you on your monitor. So now we try this again with the hopper. You might have expected a bigger impact on the game, but we still got that stable 70 FPS. And now for the decorated pot, which actually has a rendering cap on it, so it'll only render at a certain distance. The reasoning for that might be that it has a pretty big impact on the game, although we are, creating an extraordinary amount here. When I get close in, dang, the frames, they just absolutely disappear. Perhaps the question we should be asking is how many is too much? There's 1,600 there, which I think is probably unlikely for an average player to have in the same area. It's at 4,800 that it starts to push my game a little bit, but I am using a beefy system. So depending on your hardware, it could be that having a few hundred of these in the area could be detrimental for your performance. So keep that in mind if you plan on using this as a building block. And as it stands, I think this might be one of the most under-optimized blocks in the game. Hopefully in a future update, this will get addressed and it'll be a little more friendly on the client. So I have one more round for you and a little bonus to follow it. This is all about the camel and the camel dash, because all camels are created equally, and apparently the furthest they can dash is around 10 blocks, although you've got to time it perfectly. And if you want to do some testing, well, that can make things a little bit complicated when it comes to consistency. So to create a perfect dash consistently, I did a little coding with my auto clicker and created this Camel Dash command, which will hold down the spacebar for 500 and then release it. So when I hold down the correct combination of keys, you can see that we get a perfect jump each and every time. But there are more pieces to this puzzle. First of all, we want a camel that isn't going to move around on its own. Unfortunately, the game has a no AI tag. Then we also set its coordinates to be exactly on -230. Now that I'm on the camel, we can go ahead and verify its coordinates by running this command. And then you know what we're doing next. We're holding down Control and E, we're doing that perfect dash, and then we simply run this again. And now you see that we dashed -240 and just a little bit. So that was just slightly over 10 blocks. So now we're going to run the test again, but this time I made a modification to the dash command. It lands in the golden area, but it's not perfect. And now you'll see that we actually jumped the same distance. So this means in order to execute a perfect dash with the camel, you just need to get it in that gold part at the end. You don't need to fill it up all the way. So now we know that the biggest gap we can jump with the Camel Dash is just over 10 blocks, right? So let's see if it can jump this gap. Here we go. And we successfully landed. Oh, and look at that. If there's a block slightly smaller than this, you could probably land on it. So I think it can cover a gap of 12 and 2 pixels of a block. Of course, you'd have to time the back of the camel being here and the front landing there very precisely. But wait, there's more. We can use jump boost to influence the distance that the camel jumps. Okay, let's go ahead and jump. Here we go. And then we compare the results and you can see we technically went a little bit further. Now we're going to do the same again with the swiftness potion. We do the dash, then we compare the results, and speed makes the camel go even further when it's dashing. The question now on your mind is, can these two be used together? The answer is yes, but let's have a little bit of fun with this one. I've got a very special potion right here. And we're going to need this dramatic view for this one, because it sends us right up into the sky. Yes, that was level 10 on both of those potion types. And I just know some of you are going to ask, so here is the distance when you use the Speed Boost 2 and the Jump Boost 2 together. Now what about that little bonus that I promised you? Well, it's just a reminder that dispensers interact with entities, that including the camel. You can equip one with a saddle from a dispenser. And on that note, we do come to the end of the episode, but technically there's more if you're looking for it. And that's because I recently did a myth-busting live stream. I've actually never done this before, so a lot of the prep and a few other things for this episode was done on that stream. It's over on my second channel. If you're interested, there'll be a link in the description box down below. Now, I don't know if I'll be doing a live stream of myth busting again, but I will definitely be making more episodes because I had an absolute blast putting this one together for you. So if you want any questions answered, remember hashtag mythbusting in the comments. That's the hashtag I use to find your questions and investigate. So thank you for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another one. Bye bye.